We're delighted to be joined live by Mr. Sunil Gavaskar, live from Ground Zero from Sydney. That's where the entire action is going to be. But Sunil, right now, all the action is in the media. Without getting into the merits and demerits of that report or the accuracy of that particular report, on the whole, it can't be a great scenario for the Indian team with this kind of reportage, with this kind of news emerging from the Indian dressing room ahead of such a crucial test match of the series.
Uh, firstly, why do you think that people in the Indian change room would be reading or being affected by it? The media is, during the days when there are no matches, they have to come up with a story. And that's a story that, the media has come up because, what can you write if they are only practicing? What can you say that, he played like this, he practiced like this, he bowled slower balls, he batted against, the throwdown specialist. That is not interesting. So you have to make up a story. So that is what the media is about. So I don't think any of the Indian players, really gives it a thought what has been written. They just want to focus on how to get better than what they were in the previous games. So I think that is what it will be. So I don't think, all these reports don't make a slightest difference to the Indian team.
Okay, so fair point. Do you think that the players can isolate themselves from this outside noise and focus on the job on hand? But what about the coach? Clearly, he was aware of this kind of reportage because, when he was asked those questions, he was ready for it, as you could make out from that press interaction. So he clearly knows the things that have been written about the Indian team. Does that then have an impact?
Yeah, maybe the coach is reading, but the players. I don't think the players could be, can't be. I'm not saying can't be bothered, but I don't think it's going to make a difference to the players because once you enter the field, none of these things matter at all. These things everybody knows. The thing that I've been saying for a long time is that the days off are the days when the Indian cricket team is always a little concerned about because they don't know what's going to appear in the papers the next day because something has to be written about cricket. So cricket in India is a blessed sport that way. It's a blessed sport because there's that the papers realize the need to have something about cricket every day. So that's a blessing. And so I think the players will take it in their stride. I don't think it'll be any issue. And if the coach was aware of it, I don't think coach is not going to go out and play. So it's not going to make a difference.
Okay, Saiba, let me ask you. You are not just a former player; you're a commentator. You have been, on this tour, covering the entire series. You must have observed the players from up close. Did you notice that there is any sort of unrest within the team, or do you think this team is as united as any other Indian team in the past?
Every time the Indian team has not done well, these things about rifts and all that is a common story. It's like it's almost as if the people feel that Indian team cannot lose. So if they lose, there has to be something a reason other than cricketing, other cricketing reason than the fact that the opposition was better on that day or opposition was better during that test match. So they have to make an excuse. So the best excuse is what A is fighting with B, C is fighting with D, E. So those are the kind of things, that makes for juicy reading. Don't believe it. When these guys, all of us, when we entered the field, we just wanted to do well for our country. Whatever was written, about, him not talking with A, whatever it is, it didn't make any difference because we were all, concerned about doing the best for India. We didn't always do the best for India. That's not, there's no sportsman who can say that he's been successful every day. So I don't think, I know you're part of the media, so you feel that, but these are all things, which tomorrow, once the first ball is bowled, all these things will be completely, forgotten.
Okay, Saivai, a fair point you make there that usually, whenever the team is down and out, then these sort of stories emerge because you need some sort of a scapegoat and then you need to pin the blame on somebody. That's a fair point. But my question to you is, do you really think that the Indian team is down in the doldrums to an extent that certain, reports that we see right now, that needed to be there? we've seen it in the past. Whenever India has been 3-0 down, 4-0 down, certain reports do come out as to who's going to take the blame. This blame game that happens between players or the supporting staff and so on and so forth. But I'd like to know, what do you make of India's situation? Is it that bad that you really needed this sort of reportage, or there is really merit in this sort of reportage? That's why it's out, and it's got nothing much to do with where the Indian team is at the moment in the series.
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't think so. We are just 2-1 with the one to go. So India wins this test match. It's going to be 2-all. So I don't think it is India is behind at all. They just had a couple of, in a 5-day game, you can have a couple of bad hours. And, those bad hours can cost you. Sometimes it's not even an hour. Sometimes it's, 15, 20 minutes, which can, cost you the game. And that's where Australia capitalized on some of the mistakes that the Indians made. The Australians capitalized, and that was it.
All right, Saibhai, on that subject, the other bit that is being reported is, a lot of youngsters have been quite adventurous with their batting, and that hasn't gone down too well with the coach. Why this is going to be interesting insight is because you were actually the first one to point this out. You were not too pleased with certain shots that were played by players, not keeping in mind the match situation. When you were making those comments, did this thought also cross your mind that some players were putting self-interest over team interest, and that's why you made those comments? Or do you think no, it was just situational at that moment? You weren't pleased as a punch looking at those adventurous shots, and that's why you called that during commentary?
No, I don't think it was self-interest, because no, I don't think there is that thing. People sometimes, have a belief in their abilities, belief in what is their strength as a batter, as a bowler, or as a fielder, and therefore they try and play according to that strength. Sometimes they can maybe overestimate that strength, and I think that can then lead to making a mistake. So I think that's the only thing. That's the only thing that has happened. I don't think there was any self-interest involved. No, not at all. There was no self-interest involved. It can be a miscalculation, because that's what sport is all about. And so that was what it was.
Okay, Saibhai, let's look ahead to the Sydney Test match. And of course, credible reports seem to suggest no Rohit Sharma in the 11. He might be, quote unquote, rested. What I'd like to know from you is that the fact that Rohit Sharma did not really start the practice session. We all know he's a top order batter, and usually top order batters get the majority of the chunk of the practice session. We believe, as is being reported from Australia, that he was one of the last people to come out to practice in the nets. Also did not come for the press conference. Usually you get the captain coming a day before the test matches to start to address the press. This time it was the coach. If I was to put 2 and 2 together, fair to say that we might not see Rohit Sharma's name on the team sheet come toss time?
Well, the captain addressed the media just 2 days ago. So maybe he felt that he didn't need to address the media again, and the coach had not addressed the media at all. And so maybe the coach had to come because, as you said, of some of the story that appeared, and maybe that's what the coach came out and said, that, nothing of that sort had happened, which again should tell you a thing or two about that report or reports that you were talking about. But look, when I was playing and I was about the same age as Rohit Sharma, I hardly ever practiced in the nets, because the net pitches can be a little bit different than the pitches in the middle. The net pitches, because they're not rolled always, there is a lot more wear and tear on the net pitches. The net pitches can actually cause a few injuries, not serious injuries, but you get hit on the thigh pad. Now the thigh pads are much better, much stronger. But you get hit on the thigh pad to such an extent that your thigh, can the blood can, you can have blood clots in your thigh, which will not help your feet movement, which is the reason I did not practice. I would take a few throwdowns, but not actually practice. And maybe Rohit Sharma did that. Let's not jump to any conclusions. Let's just wait for tomorrow, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, Saibhai, direct question to you. Rohit is the captain at the moment, and we know captain is the final say when it comes to the 11. If he does not play, he's going to take a major role in that decision itself. Let me put you in a spot. You've been a former captain before. If in today's scenario, Rohit Sharma, what do you do when it comes to your comes to the 11? Do you drop yourself?
Uh, I would speak to the people around me, people around me in the team, the seniors in the team. I would ask them, do you think I should be playing? Do you think me being out of form I should be playing? And if the guys tell me yes, they want me to play, I'll go and play. I've had this situation a couple of times before when I've not been 100% fit. I've had a little niggle somewhere or the other, and I've asked the players, I've asked the captain of the team, and I've had this fantastic response where the captain and the coach, or the manager, as was the case in those days, have turned around and said, even if you're, you know, 20%, we want you to play. And if that's the kind of answer, then I think that's an answer in itself.
Okay, Saima, since we're talking about the captaincy issue, and if Rohit does drop himself based on form for the Sydney Test match, the other question that would arise is what do you do in terms of succession line? Who's going to be your captain going forward? Is it the right time for Indian cricket to start thinking about those questions?
More than successor to Rohit Sharma, I think the Indian selection committee should be now thinking at the next cycle of Test cricket. This cycle finishes now. After this Test match for India, this cycle finishes now. If they win and then all the percentages work out, they can still qualify for the World Test Championship final. But that's it. The new cycle starts in June, and I think that's where the Indian selectors will need to look at who will be available for the 2027 World Test Championship final.
Hmm. Well, talking about options, at the moment I can see there are multiple options. There are senior players. You can think about a Virat Kohli, going back to him. You of course have a Jasprit Bumrah who's a vice captain. There are some youngsters, and Rishabh Pant is there. Shubman Gill is being touted as a future captain. KL Rahul is captain the team. There are multiple contenders at the moment for that spot of captaincy if Rohit Sharma does decide to pass on the baton. My question to you is that a healthy sign in a team that there are multiple options, or do you think when you arrive at a scenario like this where there are multiple contenders for captaincy, that only creates confusion?
I think it's very healthy because what it means is that just like if you have multiple options for an opening batting or a middle order batting or for a wicket keeper or for spin bowling and fast bowling, it tells you that the selection committee has a pleasant headache. The terrible headache is you don't know who to pick. The the pleasant headache is who you do, who you do not want, who you want to leave out. That's a very pleasant headache. So to have so many captaincy options available, as you say, there are, is actually a good thing because it also tells you there are so many leaders in that group, and they all can contribute to the Indian team going forward.
Okay, fair point. Anyway, as you say, that it's always good, good headache, as it's often referred to, that you have multiple options. You can look at anyone to be a leader of the Indian Test team going forward. But my question to you is, I'm going to probe a bit more. Would you rather go with a youngster, clean slate, start afresh? Is that a better path to take? Or do you go with someone as experienced as, let's say, a Virat Kohli who's done the job before? If he's ready right now, probably give it to him in the interim. What do you think would be the right path here?
Well, again, somebody who's going to be there for the 2027 World Cup final. That would be the case. You want to go for somebody who's going to be around for 2027 final.
Okay, Saiva, in that short, crisp answer, I've got my answer to that particular question. But finally, before we let you go, there's a test match to be played, irrespective of all the noise that is being made on the outside. India have a golden chance, something that I mentioned right at the start of the broadcast, to retain that border Gavaskar trophy. And I know personally you'd be delighted if the Indian team can do that. They've held that trophy for the last decade. They wouldn't want to let it go. They have a great chance in Sydney, a place which is traditionally suited the Indian team. You reckon this Indian team, despite those two losses, has it in them to make it 2-all, retain that trophy?
Oh, absolutely. This team is a very good team. Like I said, they've had a couple of bad hours, a couple of maybe 20 minutes, and so this team is perfectly capable of coming back. We saw that in the first test in Perth, they were knocked over for just 150, and then they knocked over Australia for 104. Then they piled up almost 500, and they won the game. So yes, this team is perfectly capable of doing that. They just need a little bit of luck going their way, and if that goes their way, we can see a 2-all result by Monday or Tuesday.